Okay, sit yourself onto your lift and then come into a good cross-legged position. Just a little wiggle about, make sure you're feeling evenly placed. And then hold onto your knees, elevate the heart area upwards and draw your shoulders down. So you open up the chest by elevation and by broadening. Hold onto your knees, look down at the floor, look at something that's not moving. And then fill your lungs from the bottom to the top. And empty your lungs from the top to the bottom. Let's take deep inhalations, deep exhalations. Just allowing the lungs to fill from the bottom to the top and from the top to the bottom. Just look down at the floor, keep your eyes still in your sockets. And then release your knees, bring your hands into Namaste. Lengthen from your armpits into your elbows. Your elbows into the heels of the hands into the fingertips. And with an exhalation, allow your eyes to gently close. Listen to the sound of the breath as it enters and as it exits. Gently draw your chin down to meet your chest. Just spend a moment to seek to generate a genuine, heartfelt sense of gratitude for something or someone or somewhere. Hold on to that feeling of abundance in your heart area. Bring the backs of your knees down onto your hands down onto the backs of the knees, the palms facing upwards. Just connecting the thumb and the index finger, stretching the other fingers away. A gesture of peacefulness and wisdom that we can carry through to our practice. And then as you raise your head, allow your eyes to softly open. Just hold onto your knees, elevate your heart area upwards. Take a deep inhalation in through the nose. And then turn to the right side, drawing the abdomen across, the ribs across, the shoulders across. Just feel how just that action in itself wakes up the body. Drawing the abdomen and the ribs and the shoulders across. Just listening to the breath. Using your out breath to intensify the turn. Avoiding turning the neck, keeping the chin in line with the chest, but turning the shoulders and the ribs and the abdomen. Just waking up your energy. And then come back to the center. Take a deep inhalation and then turn to the left. Again, drawing the abdomen across first, and then the ribs, and then the shoulders, and then just keeping the chin directly in line with the chest. So you're not stretching the neck, you're turning the spine. Using each exhalation to just intensify your turn in some way. As you turn, do you observe a difference in the weighting of the seat bones? So try and remedy that by bringing the torso between the two hips so that the hips, the seat bones, feel evenly placed as you turn. And then come back to the center, hold onto your knees, lift up into your chest, drawing your shoulders down away from your ears. And then just come off your lift. And then just sit back on your heels for Adho Mukha Virabhadrasana. So sitting back on your heels. So at this stage, just allowing the legs to kind of just sink into the floor. Have a little wriggle about. Make sure that the outer buttock draws into the inner heel. So you make really good connection between the seat bones and the heels. Observe how the shins make contact with the floor. If you're on a hard floor, it's harder to activate the shins. If you're on a soft floor, because like I'm on a carpet in here, the shins feel like they make really good contact anyway. But sometimes you need, if your shins don't make contact, then maybe put a blanket underneath your shins. Press the shins really consciously into the floor so that the legs come to life. Turning from the inside of the leg to the outside of the leg, like you're doing trikonasana. Lift up into the chest and then come forwards, stretching forwards, keeping the heart area lifted, keeping the head lifted. Coming forwards, stretching your arms away, keeping the seat bones down on the heels, lengthening the heart area towards the arms, straightening the arms, and then finally bringing the forehead down. Just listen to the sound of the breath. Aim to inflate the back chest with the breath. Fill the body with the energy of the in-breath. Just listening to the sound of the breath hitting the seat bones down onto the heel. Come up onto your knees, turn your toes under, and then come up into dog down. Or if you're not doing dog down, you can do supta, baddangulyasana, or dandasana, because dandasana activates the body and the legs and the torso in a really similar way, but gravity is different. So tighten your kneecaps, lift the seat bones, lift the tailbone away from the heels, lengthen the heels a little away from the seat bones. Keep the heart area lifted upwards, stretch from the armpits into the elbows, into the wrists, into the palms. Listening to the sound of the breath. Just focusing on long, slow, deep and deliberate breaths. Having the feet as wide apart as the mat just to give you space in the hips. Activating the thighs and turning the fronts of the thighs inwards so that the backs of the thighs can broaden outwards, so that the seat bones can lift a little higher. And then step your feet forwards, come up into a standing position. If you're protecting your back, or if there's any reason why your heart shouldn't go underneath your hips, then do half uttanasana with blocks. So half uttanasana, coming into it with blocks, stretching the chin and the chest forwards. Otherwise, raise your arms up, hook the thumbs into the crease of the elbows, wrap your fingers around your elbows, and then hinge at the hips. Lengthening the upper body down to the floor. Activating the kneecaps and the thighs, turning the fronts of the thighs inwards, broadening the backs of the thighs, lifting the seat bones up towards the ceiling. If you're in half uttanasana, extend the spine away from the hips. If you're in full uttanasana, extend the spine away from your hips. So sometimes we just think that getting the head to the floor or the arms to the floor is the priority, but it's not. It's activating the legs, allowing the spine to continue to extend. And then just bring your hands to the floor if you're in full uttanasana. Bring your hands into your hips, bend your knees on the way up if you need to, and then come up into a standing position. Just move blocks out of the way if they're there, and then come up into Tadasana, just lifting up into the chest. Just observe your breath. So in your Tadasana, have the big toes and the heels touching. If you can, spread the toes out to the side. Hit your shins back so that your weight goes into your heels. Turn the inner knees towards the back of the room. Turn the fronts of the thighs inwards so that the backs of the thighs feel like they broaden outward. And then without disturbing the legs, tuck the tailbone in. Draw the belly button towards the spine and then lift up into the heart area, lengthening the shoulders away from your ears, and then rotate the palms so they face outwards. so that you really broaden the chest. Just look at something that doesn't move ahead of you. Just continuing to breathe in through the nose and out through the nose. And then stretch your arms out in front, interlock the fingers, turn the palms all the way out, and then raise your arms over your head, over your head. Maintaining the foundation of your pose from the feet to the legs, to the hips, to the abdomen, to the chest, to the shoulders, to the elbows, to the wrists, to the palms. Just release your hands, swap the interlock of the fingers, turn the palms all the way out, and then again raise your arms over your head. And then release your arms downwards, stretch your arms down to the floor. Bring your arms out nice and wide in towards your chest, and then step or jump your feet apart for trikonasana. Turn your left toes in slightly, the right leg and foot all the way out, just ensuring that that heel of that right foot lines up with the toes or the instep of the back foot. Turn the legs outwards. And then come down, find your shin. Turn those legs outwards. Rotate the abdomen from the floor to the ceiling. Look up if you can. If it's uncomfortable to look up, then look forward or look down. Just have a quick glance down. Make sure that your head is directly over your foot. Squeeze the front leg buttock bone forwards a little. And then rotate the abdomen from the floor to the ceiling. And then, if you can, look upwards. Breathing in through your nose and out through the nose. So this pose is good for clearing out the sinuses. So it's kind of prime hay fever season, although our weather's really terrible, so I don't know if that really affects it. Spread the palm. Reach up with the top hand, come back to the centre, swap your feet around, turn your right toes in, the left leg and foot all the way out. Lift up into the chest and then come back to the shin, come to the left side, turning the abdomen from the floor to the ceiling, turning that front leg especially from the big toe side to the little toe side, in the thigh. Lengthening from the heels into the toes. And then come back to the centre, bring your feet parallel, and then step or jump your feet back together, come back into Tadasana. Just observe perhaps how that pose has brought energy into the body. Just fill the lungs from the bottom to the top. Empty the lungs from the top to the bottom. So we're not holding the breath. We're not really altering the breath. We're just observing the breath. Just aiming to breathe from the bottom of the lungs to the top. So that your lungs fill in the same way as you fill a jug of water from the bottom to the top. And you empty a jug from the top to the bottom. Try and breathe into both lungs evenly. Bring your arms out nice and wide, and then step or jump your feet. Go a little wider than for trikonasana. Turn the left toes in, the right leg and foot all the way out. And then this time turn, the abdomen wants to go that way, doesn't it? So turn the abdomen from the right to the left, drawing that abdomen across. So we can do Virabhadrasana 2. So this back leg remains straight, so tighten the kneecap deeply of that back leg. And then we're going to bend the front knee. Find a right angle with that front knee, but don't lose this kneecap. Don't lose the kneecap, don't lose the outside edge of that back foot. Keep bending that knee until you find your right angle, and then look over the middle finger. Straighten the leg, just release your arms for a second, swap your feet around, turn your right toes in, and the left leg and foot all the way out. So the abdomen is facing this way, the legs are turning from the inside out. So especially of this back leg, because when we come over this way, if you let that leg turn that way, then the outside edge of the heel, of the foot will kind of lift off the floor. And we want to keep that down. So turning this leg deeply from the inside out will help you to keep that little toe side of the foot down onto the floor. Lift up into the chest, stretch your arms out, turn both legs from the inside out, and then bend and descend, find your right angle. Keeping that back knee really straight, lifting from the hips up into the chest. Look over the middle finger of the right hand. Turning the legs from the inside out, turning the inner knee of that bent leg around to the outer knee. Breathe even deep inhalations and exhalations. Soften the jaw and the tongue and the throat. And then straighten the leg. Come back to the center. And then step or jump your feet back together. Come back into Tadasana. Just feel how you have released your energy. Maybe there's lots of energy around the hips. Just spend a moment or two just breathing and distributing that energy, using the breath as its conduit. And then bring your feet hip width apart. Turn your toes in. So we can do padangusthasana. So you might need a belt for, because if you can't reach down and find your toes like this, then instead you use a belt underneath your toes and then just have the belt like this. And then when you come forward, you just keep the back straight, and then you just come forward as much as you can, having a tug of war with your big toes. So use the belt if you need it, and then lift up into the chest, elevate the heart area upwards, turn the legs inwards, because that action gives you space in the hips, and this is a lot of hip action here. Have your hands on your hips for a moment, lift up into the chest. Hit the shins back so that your weight is in your heels. Tighten the kneecaps, turn the inner knees towards the back of the room, and then lift the inner knees up towards the groin. Raise your arms. And then hinge at the hips, keeping the head lifted, keeping the arms lifted. Keep reaching into the middle of the room. And then come forwards, lengthening forwards. And then take hold of the big toe with the index finger and the middle finger Wrapping the thumb around the outside of the big toe. And then lift the seat bones, lift the legs, and project the chin and the chest forwards. Keep the kneecaps tight and keep the thigh muscles activated from the front. Push the fronts of the thighs through to the backs of the thighs and turn the fronts of the thighs inwards. So the backs of the thighs, you feel them broadening outwards, and then lift up the seat bones. Lift the tailbone, project the chin and the chest forward. So it's the cow action of the hips, isn't it? Breathing in through the nose and out through the nose. If your back is okay, or if there's any reason why you shouldn't bring your heart lower than your waist, just stay at this stage. Otherwise, bend your elbows out to the side, keeping the chest lifted, keeping the legs straight, and then bring the chest between the two legs, keeping the head lifted as you come down. Breathing even and deep inhalations and exhalations. Turning the fronts of the shins inwards, lifting the inner knees up towards the inner groins. Padangusthasana. And then release your hands, just come into half uttanasana. And then if you're not doing dog down, just come down onto your knees and go into supta baddha. So laying on your back with the feet together, the feet close to the seat bones, the knees falling apart. Otherwise, walk your hands forwards into dog down. Bring your hands as wide apart as your shoulders. Step your feet as wide apart as your hips. And then activate your legs as you were doing. In padangusthasana, lifting the kneecaps. Activating the thighs, lifting the thigh muscle up into the hip socket. Turning the fronts of the thighs inwards so that the seat bones can lift more. Okay, and then come down onto your knees. Sit back on your heels if you're in supta baddha, just stay there. Just lift up into the chest, elevating the heart area upwards. And just spend a moment or two just to observe the lightness of your energy that you have released through your practice so far. And then just sit yourself up, come into cross legs for a moment, just sitting in cross legs. Just be in whichever cross legs is most comfortable for you. So half padmasana if you can, or normal cross legs. If your knees are really high in cross legs like this, then it's difficult to lift into the spine. So sit on a folded blanket or on a couple of blocks. Hold onto your knees, roll onto the fronts of the seat bones. And then lift the heart area upwards, drawing the shoulders down. Just look down at the floor, look at something that doesn't move. Soften your jaw, by drawing the lower teeth away from the upper teeth. Soften your tongue, soften your throat, and observe that maybe that makes your eyes want to close because it softens around the eyes. But try and just gently keep them open, just looking at something that doesn't move. Lifting the heart area upwards, drawing your shoulder, drawing your chin down to meet your chest for bandha. And then keep the chest attached to the chin if you can. If you struggle with that, then you can get a pair of socks or a folded belt and lodge it underneath your chin. So you've got connection. And then lift Mula Bandha by raising the anal sphincter up towards the diaphragm region. Just close your eyes and just focus on filling the lungs from the bottom to the top. And allowing the in-breath to overflow into the arms and into the torso and into the legs. So you fill in your lungs from the bottom to the top, and the energy of the breath overflows into the arms and the torso and the legs. We're not holding the breath at any stage. We're just letting the breath be free and that natural. But we're just engaging with the energy of the breath. Just focusing on filling the lungs and emptying them. Maintaining Mula Bandha and Jalandhara Bandha. And then release Mula Bandha, release Jalandhara Bandha, and then raise your head upwards. And then stretch your legs out in front, have them about hip width apart, and then put a belt around your feet. So you can have the feet hip width apart or bring the big toes together. If you've got stiff hips, have them wider apart. Otherwise, have the big toes together and then rotate the shins inwards. Rotate the inner knees down to the floor. Activate the thighs and turn the fronts of the thighs inwards. And then elevate the heart area upwards. Pushing the feet into the belt, pulling against the belt. And then, if there's no problem with your back, just come forwards just a little bit at a time, keeping the legs activated. So each time you come forwards, if you can reach your feet, then do. But as you come forwards, do you lose the legs? So keep the legs activated. If you can bend your elbows out to the sides, and we're coming into paschimottanasana, lifting up into the chest. If you can reach around the feet, then do. Keep the legs activated at all times, lifting the heart area, keeping the head lifted, keeping the kneecaps pressing down into the floor, driving the chin towards the toes. Just pressing the legs into the floor, maintaining the extension of the heart area towards the legs, towards the feet. So a little at a time you come closer to the legs, but all the time keeping the head lifted until the chest is in contact with the legs, and then you can just let the head rest down. But if your head is nowhere near your legs, just keep lifting the head, keep driving the chin and the chest forwards. So I could force my head down, but that doesn't really, it's not very conducive to positive action. So I just keep lifting the chest, driving the chest towards the feet. Keep rotating the legs. And then gently come back to the center, come into dandasana. Just observe the quietness over the brain that comes from coming out of forward bend. Feel the energy around the chest expanding outwards. Just come into cross legs, just half paddangulyasana or normal cross legs. Come, hold onto your knees and lift up into your chest. Elevating the heart area upwards. Get a block for either side of your hips. If you've got one for each side, if you've only got one, then just put it on the right side. Reach underneath the knee on the right side. Bring your elbow down onto the block, keeping your elbow in line with your shoulder. Push the elbow into the floor. Stretch across to that left seat bone. Press in that left seat bone down to the floor. Turn the abdomen from the floor to the ceiling, and then reach up and over, keeping that left buttock bone pressing firmly down into the floor. So you have to connect it to that elbow, that right elbow. Press the elbow into the floor and then lengthen from the elbow into the left buttock bone, pressing it down, turning the chest, feeling that length of the spine. And then come back to the center. So, Andrew, you probably don't want to put too much weight on that elbow that you've injured. So just maybe put a blanket on top of a folded blanket on top of or put a cushion or something on top of the lift, so you're not pushing down too hard, and just try and keep the weight off that elbow. Bend the left elbow, reach underneath the armpit. Again, just make sure that elbow is directly underneath the shoulder, and then turn the chest. Push the elbow into the floor if you can. Lengthen across to that left seat bone. So don't put too much weight on that elbow, Andrew. And then lift up and over. So you can keep the weight off that elbow by pressing the right buttock bone down into the floor. So if it starts to become uncomfortable on that elbow, just bring a hand onto the floor and take the elbow off the floor. Turn the abdomen. Turn the ribs and the shoulders from the floor to the ceiling. Lengthen into the top fingers, into the top arm. And then release, come back to the center and then lift up into the chest, feeling that elevation of the side ribs. Take a deep inhalation and then turn to the right side, drawing your abdomen across your ribs and your shoulders. Lengthening the shoulders away from the ears. Just turning the abdomen. And then back to the center. Hold onto your knees, lift up into the chest. And then turn to the left. And then come back to the center. Come down onto your back and into supta, baddangulyasana. So pull the feet close to the seat bones. Let the knees fall apart. Just rest your hands on your lower ribs and observe your breath. So you can take your glasses off when you're on your back, just to let the face relax. Just initially stretch your arms to the ceiling, interlock the fingers, turn the palms all the way out, and then lengthen your arms along the floor. If there's stiffness in your hips, put blocks underneath the thighs. If there's stiffness in your shoulders, put a folded blanket or some blocks underneath your hands. Raise your arms, swap the interlock of the fingers, turn the palms to face the ceiling and then lengthen your arms along the floor. And then release your arms. Bring your knees together, have your knees together, your feet apart. Just get a blanket, just bring it underneath your neck and your head. And then stretch your legs out. Just come up onto your elbows. Make sure you're in a good straight line right down the centre of the mat. And then allow the body to just gently release into the floor. Just let go of the arms and the legs, unhooking the muscles. So the body initially becomes heavy on the ground. But out of that heaviness, maybe you observe a lightness that radiates out from the bones and into the muscles, into the organs. Into the flesh and the skin. Just using the in-breath and the out-breath to distribute that feeling of energetic lightness down into the toes and into the fingers and up into the top of the head. Just filling the body with positive energy. Gently wriggle your toes, wriggle your fingers. Just bring yourself back into this pose of Shavasana. And then draw your knees in towards your chest. Just have a little rock from side to side, from top to bottom. Just a gentle massage on the spine. And then roll over onto your right side. Just stay down for a breath or two. And then straighten out the top leg. Come back up into a seated position. Just come into cross legs. With your hands in Namaste. Just a final spinal lift. Drawing your breath in through your nose and down into the abdomen. Samanic breath that brings consciousness to your energy. Be aware of the energy that you released through your practice this morning, that good, positive, healthy flow of clean energy that the extensions and the forward bends and the twists and the reclining poses bring to the body and to the mind. Draw your chin down to meet your chest. Just spend a moment to acknowledge the positive energy you have created inside. And then send some of that positive energy out into the world. And then gently release the backs of your hands down towards your knees, palms facing upwards. Tip of the index finger in contact with the tip of the thumb. And then as you raise your head, allow your eyes to softly open and the focus to softly come back. Thank you very much. So hopefully you feel like you've just really gently released your energy. Maybe it wasn't gentle poses, but there's a good feeling of positive energy that's now flowing through you. So thank you very much for joining me.